If you're thinking about becoming an HVAC sales engineer, there are a few things you need to know before you get started. By the way, my name is Abdullah and I transitioned from engineering into sales engineering, and I want to help more people get into sales engineering because it's a lucrative career and nobody really talks about it. So there are two main aspects you need to know about before getting into this kind of role. First is technical stuff. Second is non-technical stuff, so like soft skills. We'll start off with the technical stuff. So it's obviously going to be different for every kind of sales engineer, but for this video, I'm talking about HVAC in specific. And in HVAC sales engineering, you really need to know a lot about the products. But before you learn about the specific products, you need to know about the basics, First is fans. You really need to know what a fan is, how it operates, what static pressure is. You need to also understand different kinds of fans like axial, centrifugal, vane axial, upblast roof fans, downblast roof fans. There are a lot of different kinds of fans that you need to know when getting into this kind of career. And one thing you can do to learn about fans is just go onto any fan manufacturer's website and just take a look at all their fan models, take a look at the specifications, and just start learning about it that way. Next, and arguably one of the most important things in HVAC sales engineering, or just in the HVAC world in general, air handling. So air handling units are kind of boxes that have a bunch of stuff inside to get air from the outside, treat it, cool it or heat it, filter it, mix it with some return air sometimes, and put it back into the building. These are one of the most expensive kinds of equipment to sell, so you really need to know them because you don't want to mess those up. There are a couple different types of air handling units. First is makeup air units, where you're just bringing in 100% outside air, so you're not mixing it with any return air from inside. This is usually used to replace exhausted air, for example in kitchens, where you're exhausting a lot of air, especially in commercial kitchens. You need to have a makeup air tied to that exhaust system. Or for example in manufacturing or in warehouses where you're exhausting air, you need to have some sort of makeup air unit to bring back that exhausted outside air. Another type of air handling unit is a rooftop unit, and these are basically one of the cheapest kinds of air handling units. They sit on the roof. They're usually around 20 to 30 to 40 maybe percent outside air, and the rest is just recirculated air. And they're basically what you're going to find on most commercial buildings, those small boxes on the roof. They sometimes have a V. That's usually, DX cooling mixed with gas heat. These are very, very common, and you need to know how they work. You can also have very custom air handling units, for example, for hospitals, where you need specific kind of structural components in the air handling unit, for example, stainless steel construction, stuff like that, or you have obstructions in the mechanical room where you have to avoid. So you need to go up to a custom manufacturer where they can kind of custom make an air handling unit specifically for that application. And in those ones, you can usually, mix and match the components inside. You can have, energy recovery, you can have hydronic loops, you can have split DX, with a condensing unit that's outside somewhere on the roof or something. So this is a very, very important piece of HVAC sales, and I think it's one of the most difficult, just to learn about all the types of construction types, all the types of energy recovery you can do, and meeting the specs while designing this custom air handler is very, very important. And when I say specs, I mean the specifications laid out by the consulting engineer. They're the ones who list out the kind of qualities that this air handling unit needs to meet. And they have the final say on whether your unit is accepted or not. So make sure your unit meets every single spec listed by the engineer. Next, you need to learn about chillers and boilers and cooling towers. These are the basic parts of hydronic system. These chillers and boilers are usually connected to fan coil units that are in suites, or they can be connected to air handling units as well, and they're very, very commonly used. Next is heat pumps. So you're going to see a lot more heat pumps being used in the next 10 to 20 to 30 years. We're seeing it a lot more now because of all the decarbonization initiatives. A heat pump is basically an air conditioner, but with a reversing valve that can actually heat the space instead of just cooling. And these are used a lot. These can actually be also integrated into air handling units where you have a decarbonized solution for heating and cooling together. So I've actually supplied one recently to a zoo. So these air handling units are usually called air source heat pump, DOAS units or air handling units, where they can heat and cool with the air source heat pump. Next thing you want to understand is humidification. So humidification is very, very important because it's a very crucial part of providing comfort to a space. It's not just temperature, you also need to understand humidification. You also need to understand it because in some codes, especially for healthcare applications, humidity is required by code. So it's not just a nice to have, it's a need. Also for manufacturing facilities where the product that's being made is humidity sensitive, it is very crucial for you to know how to properly design a humidification system, whether it's isothermal or adiabatic for a specific application. One more thing I forgot to mention about heat pumps, you really need to double down on learning the refrigeration cycle from basics. So just look up on YouTube any video that explains the refrigeration cycle in a heat pump. It's going to be very, very useful for you. Now, tying to humidification is psychrometrics. So psychrometrics is basically the study of air tempering. I'm not sure if that's the correct definition, but it helps us understand how the properties of air change once we cool it, heat it, humidify it. And there's a really important chart called the psych chart or the psychrometric chart, where you can kind of plot processes. So for example, cooling, you can plot that and see, how the humidity changes once you cool it, how you hit the dew point, how it condenses, and the humidity decreases and all that stuff. So it's very important for you to understand psychrometrics, what happens to the air when you heat it, what happens when you cool it, what happens when you dehumidify it, what happens when you humidify it isothermally, what happens when you do it adiabatically instead. So a lot of stuff to learn with this, but it is very, very important for you to know. Now I know this can be a lot to take in. That's why I made a slideshow presentation that kind of goes through each one of these in a bit more depth, and I'm running it by a few people right now. So if you want to learn more about these topics in a bit more depth, just shoot me a message on LinkedIn and I can get you sorted. And don't worry, it's free. Now on to the non-technical side. There are a few things you need to know as a sales engineer that you're not really gonna find in other kinds of roles. First is presentation skills. So as a sales engineer, you're going to be going to engineering offices and you're going to be presenting about, relevant codes. You're going to be presenting about new products, how they can apply that product properly. And you're going to be giving presentations in front of, 30, 40, 50 people sometimes. And you need to be very, very confident. Now, you can read and study about presentation skills all day long, but you're never going to improve unless you actually practice. The first few times I did it, I was a bit nervous, but now it's such a normal thing to me, like I don't even think about it when I go and do a presentation in front of people. So I suggest, if there's any way you can get involved in a place where you can practice your public speaking, it would really, really help you. And if you want to practice with me as well, you can shoot me a message on LinkedIn and we can set up a meeting and see where you're at. Next thing, you need to know that this role requires a lot of patience. Yes, it is a sales role, but it's not quick money. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's none of that. It's hard work. Projects take a long, long time sometimes. So you can't be going into this thinking, hey, I'm just gonna make a lot of money very quickly. No, you need to go into this with the mindset of educating people, with learning about the product, with trying to be as helpful as possible. And projects do take long, especially on the engineering side. Some projects take up to 2 years. Some projects do take, a couple of months only, but you need to lower your expectations so you can provide good service to your engineers and be of value without them thinking that you just want to make money. So just to recap this point, you need to focus on the engineering, focus on the process, focus on educating people, being of service, being reliable, and in time you will become successful. Next thing you need to know about sales engineering is that you're going to do a lot of business development. Now, in my case, for example, I had to develop business with new accounts across the Toronto area, and this required me to cold call engineering offices, to send emails to cold and warm people, to use LinkedIn as a tool, to use LinkedIn to get to know people and introduce them to my company and what products we offer. So be ready to kind of put a lot of effort upfront to make connections, to get the name of your firm out there, because as much as big as your firm is, there are a lot of people who still won't know what products you offer and how you can help them. So you need to know that you're going to put in a lot of effort up front, cold calling, DMing people on LinkedIn, sending emails before you actually get going in this role. Now you're gonna get some accounts that are already warm from previous people or from your boss or something, but if you really want to stand out in this role, you're gonna need to get your own business into the company, and that's when you're really gonna be seen as an asset within the firm. Now this kind of ties to everything that I told you about the non-technical part, but communication skills are crucial in this role. You're going to be talking to a lot of engineers every single day, and if you're not good at communicating your point quickly and efficiently, you're going to spend way too much time clarifying and way too much time doing non-essential things that you're just not gonna keep up. So you need to learn how to be an effective communicator, especially email, phone calls. Answer very, very quickly. That's very important. Obviously make sure it's correct, but answering quickly is a very important part of communication skills, even though a lot of people don't think of it. And you want to be able to get to the point with the engineers because they are some of the busiest people and they don't want to waste their time with some sales guy talking about a product. Okay, you need to help them quick, give them what they need efficiently, effectively, and quickly. And that's how you're going to build those relationships over time.